Gates, and for this self-assessment number 3, I want to just summarize some of the readings that impacted me during this week. If I can summarize the readings in one sentence for this week, it would be: humility must be the core ingredient that grounds me during this doctoral journey. I think that was the one word that just resonated with me and continued to be present with me throughout all the readings, from reading Dr. Mellinger's dissertation to reading Weimeister's quality research papers for theological students, and for reading Machia's chapter 4 and his conversation about St. Benedict. It was interesting that each of those pieces of literature dealt with humility in some sort of way. And I believe that as I was reading the works this week, that I believe that God was speaking to me about the subject of humility, especially on this doctoral journey, that within this educational journey, I must enter into it and navigate through it with a sense of humility. And so in the rule of life, one of the things that, in Machia, one of the things he talks about, he mentions St. Benedict, like as I said earlier, and how his entire role was based upon his humility. And it wasn't just rules or just don't do this, don't do that, but it was undergirded by a sense of love and this idea of being humble and submitting yourself to God. And I just found that to be very interesting and unique. In reading both Dr. Mellinger and Weimeister's literature, I was encouraged to enter into studies with a spirit of humility. And when we are humble, one of the themes that came out, especially in Dr. Mellinger's piece, is that we can accept criticism, we can allow ourselves to be informed by the perspective of others, and when necessary, we can rethink or change our positions. And it takes a humble person to be willing to say, you know what, I need to revisit this, this particular issue, or I don't have it all together right now, and I maybe need to change this perspective. And so in Dr. Mellinger's dissertation, she talks about the teacher being humble, and how part of that process of the teacher being humble is creating an environment where that is safe, that's hospitable for the students to engage in the learning process. And so that's one of the things that I got out of the residency, is that the professors, there was a sense of humility that I sensed from the professors as they were presenting information, and being able to help us to see that, hey, we are learning together in this process was really, really encouraging for me on this journey. Another thing that stuck out for me, reading Machia in particular, was that whole idea of vision, and what is God calling me to do? What is the vision that God has for me? And so really trying to clarify now, kind of, what do I believe, what do I sense God is saying to me right now in this hour? And so being challenged in some of those questions to really examine kind of my calling and kind of confront my fears and say, and if there are some fears, why are these fears present? And so one of the things that the exercises was looking at the various different lives of the some of the biblical characters, from Moses to Noah, and it was just a reminder that, you know what, I don't have to have all the answers right now, but I need to trust that God has a plan, a purpose, and then live each day accordingly. So that was kind of one of the themes I got out of the Machia literature. I really enjoy, believe it or not, the Weimeister book. It was a book that, initially, when you're reading a reference book on like styling and grammar and formatting a paper, that doesn't seem like something that's exciting. But as I was reading that text, I sensed a spirit of humility in her, and a genuineness that came across in the writing. And it really resonated with me, believe it or not. It was kind of strange that I kind of was really impacted by her conclusion, and kind of her hope or her prayer for those reading the work was really touching for me, and it was a little emotional at times because as you're trying to figure out, okay, you're trying to grasp the formatting and structure, and then for her, the way she ended the book was really just profound, and I really enjoyed that piece. Another reason why is that was the first book that I read. There was a reference manual for writing that dealt specifically with theological writing. I've read several reference books, and it seems to be those books were not written for theological students, but theology students, excuse me. But this particular text was written specifically for the work that we do and how to really clarify how to what we say, how to cite sources. It was really just very, 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 very informative. And so bringing it all in, I think going back to that whole idea of humility, that was the one thing that just kind of jumped out at me. And as I read the literature, I got a sense that the writers of each of the texts were operating in the spirit of humility, and that was obvious as I read it. And I counted, there was about 30 or 40 times in Dr. Mellinger's text where I read the word humility. It was about 11 or 12 times, I think, in the quality research paper, and several times in the Machia text. And I just felt like being humble, approach this task humbly. And, I'm in awe to be able to do another doctoral program is really humbling. And it's a reminder that I have a responsibility, not only as a learner to humbly engage in the learning process, but as a teacher, be able to create an environment, a hospitable environment for those students who are I'll be leading. And so even at home, kind of personalizing it, am I creating a hospitable environment for my family, as my wife? Am I operating in a spirit of humility at home with my wife and my children? I'm trying to be intentional about, am I modeling what I'm reading? And so asking those questions to really help ground me on this journey, I think is very, very important. The one thing about the rule of life, one of the questions I think that was asked about the rule of life was, what are some fears about writing the rule of life? And one of the fears I had, interesting, was that being too ambitious with the rule. And so I actually went to the website, creating a rule of life website, and just reviewed some of those rules of life. But I think that's one of the concerns I have, is not being able to fulfill the rule of life, because I've done one before. And so being able to fulfill it and making sure that it's not too ambitious. But the idea of this rule guiding me is something that's just really, I want to aspire to live toward. But the key thing is this, is that it's not so much in the rule I'm learning, but it's in, the idea is this, is that to cultivate, to live in such a way that I'm cultivating the daily presence, the ongoing presence of God. And I think that's what the rule is all about. It's about allowing me to engage with the incarnate Christ on a regular, consistent, daily, hourly basis. So I believe that's what this rule of life will focus on, help me focus on. I think that's what Machia was trying to drive home as he was sharing about St. Benedict. So that's some of my notes as I read the readings for this week. Have a good day.